like to call to order the meeting of the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Dennis.
Here.
Senator Raddick.
Here.
Senator Kieckeffer.
Here.
Senator Sievers-Gansert.
Here.
Chair Neal.
Here. So before we begin, I would like to explain how virtual committee meetings will work, since this is a new but old process. As you know, the legislative building is currently closed to the public, and so all committee meetings will be held virtually, meaning committee members, staff, and everyone else will participate either through Zoom video conference or by telephone. However, there are various ways members of the public can engage with us and participate through the process. As in previous sessions, all committee-related information is available on Nellis, which is accessible through the legislature's website. The 4 ways to engage the committee are: 1, registering to participate in a committee meeting through the new system on Nellis, which places you in line to testify on a bill or provide public comment during the meeting. 2, provide submitted written testimony to the committee email address or fax number on the list on the agenda. 3, share your opinion via the legislator's opinion application on Nellis. Or 4, simply just view the committee meeting through Nellis or on the legislative YouTube channel. During the 2021 legislative session, to testify on a bill or provide public comment, members of the public must first register for the meeting you would like to participate in. Committee meetings are listed in several places on Nellis, and to register, simply click the participate button near the meeting date and time, and then fill in the required information, such as your name, the agenda item you're interested in, your position on the bill. Once your registration is submitted, you will see a confirmation screen. You will also receive an email. Just a note that while meeting registration is required, that does not guarantee you will be able to speak. Similar to previous sessions, testimony and public comment may be limited due to time constraints. So we're going to go ahead and move into our business for today. We're going to go out of order on the agenda. We're going to start with the work session first on SB 117. Mr. Reel, will you take us through the work session document?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Joe Reel, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. Committee, the work session document is available in Nellis, and the bill again is Senate Bill 117. Revises provisions relating to economic development and sponsored by Senator Sievers-Gansert and heard in this committee on March 2nd. Senate Bill 117 requires the Governor's Office of Economic Development, or GOED, to update the state plan for economic development at least once every 3 years. It requires that at least once every 2 years, each regional development authority must present a plan to the executive director of GOED regarding the development and enhancement of a recruiting and marketing effort to attract professionals and businesses to the region of the state that's served by that regional economic development authority. The bill also requires the Legislative Commission to appoint a committee to conduct an interim study to examine without limitation existing laws regarding tax abatements, tax exemptions, and other incentives for economic development in Nevada, and also the effectiveness of existing abatements, tax exemptions, and other incentives in encouraging economic development for the state. The testimony of individuals is summarized there in the work session document, and there were no amendments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Reel. So I will, are there any questions on the work session? Okay, so I will accept a motion to do pass.
Moved.
Second.
First by Senator Kieckeffer, second by Senator Dennis. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Dennis.
Yes.
Senator Raddick.
Yes.
Senator Kiefer,
Yes.
Senator Severs-Gansert,
Yes.
Chair Neal.
Yes. Okay, so I will assign the floor statement to the bill passes unanimously. I will assign the floor statement to Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right. So that closes our work session. So that now we will move to our bill hearing, and we will open up for AB 9 and call Department of Taxation to present.
Good afternoon, Chair Neal and members of the Senate Revenue and Economic Development Committee. For the record, my name is Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. And with me here today is Chief Deputy Director Shelley Hughes, along with Deputy Director Tiffany Greenemeyer and the economist Susanna Powers from the Governor's Finance Office. We are here to present Assembly Bill 9, which revises the provisions governing the disclosure of some confidential information held by the department by allowing the department to share information to the Governor's Finance Office strictly for the purpose of revenue projections. What I'd like to do at this time, I would like to turn it over to Chief Deputy Shelley Hughes, who will go through the provisions of the bill.
Good afternoon, Chair Neal and committee members. My name is Shelley Hughes, Chief Deputy for the Department of Taxation. I'm here today to introduce Assembly Bill 9. As Director Young stated, AB 9 authorizes disclosure in confidence of the records and files of the department to the Budget Division of the Office of Finance for use in the projection of revenue. NRS 360-255 is the department's confidentiality statute and provides that the department cannot disclose the records and files of a taxpayer relating to the administration and collection of taxes, fees, and assessments. However, this statute also provides exceptions when the department can disclose records and files. We would like to add disclosure of records and files to the Budget Division of the Office of Finance for use in the projection of revenue to the exceptions in NRS 360-255, subsection 2. We are bringing this bill forth today because we have encountered a problem with not being able to disclose data to staff in the Budget Division at the Governor's Finance Office. NRS 223-400 creates the Office of Finance and the Office of the Governor, includes the Budget Division. NRS 353 provides the various powers and duties of the Budget Division, which includes preparing the budget and forecasting numbers for the Economic Forum. Staff in the Budget Division at the Governor's Finance Office requires data from the Department of Taxation when making its revenue projections for the Economic Forum. Pursuant to NRS 353-228, the Economic Forum is responsible for forecasting future state general fund revenues for 7 of the state's major revenue sources. For each of these revenue sources, separate forecasts are prepared by the Legislative Council Bureau's Fiscal Analysis Division staff, the Governor's Finance Office Budget Division staff, and staff from the specific agencies responsible for collecting each of these revenues, such as the Department of Taxation and the Gaming Control Board. To prepare these forecasts, the Legislative Council Bureau's Fiscal Analysis Division and the Governor's Finance Office Budget Division need data regarding past and current revenues of the state that are in taxation's possession. Currently, we are able to release this data to the Legislative Council Bureau's Fiscal Division pursuant to NRS 218F-620. However, no such statute exists for us to release this information to the Governor's Finance Office Budget Division. Not having access to this information provides a disadvantage to the Governor's Finance Office Budget Division when forecasting the numbers. The Economic Forum relies on these forecasts when determining the official forecast of future state general fund revenues and how much revenue will be available for the biennial budget cycle. Furthermore, all agencies of the state, including the Governor and the Nevada Legislature, are required to use the forum's forecast, which is provided shortly before the beginning of a new legislative session. As a result, it would be prudent for the Economic Forum to have the best forecasts to make the official forecast determination. The Budget Division of the Governor's Finance Office, like the Legislative Council Bureau's Fiscal Division and Taxation, relies on historical tax revenue data as its basis for its future projections. Taxation's economist, Haley Owens, states that often there are anomalies in the data that could lead to inaccurate projections if not explained and accounted for. For example, if there's a sudden decline in revenue in a specific industry, geographic area, or tax type, is this due to a change in the underlying economy? Or perhaps a large taxpayer became non-compliant? Or perhaps a taxpayer was recoded into a different industry? Being able to clearly discuss whether the changes in the data were due to actual changes in economic activity or to non-economic changes in taxpayer activity can greatly improve forecasts by allowing the forecaster to account for their changes in their models. If taxation was able to discuss these issues with the Legislative Counsel Bureau's fiscal division, but not with the budget division of the Governor's Finance Office because it may allow for the identity of a taxpayer to be deduced, then the budget division would be at a disadvantage relative to the Legislative Counsel Bureau's fiscal division in taxation, and the entire forecasting process could suffer. It is extremely crucial for forecasters to look at the data in this granular level in order to separate the trend from the anomalies and in order to better understand the data so that it can be modeled appropriately for forecasting. In summary, we are asking to include the disclosure of our data to the budget division of the Governor's Finance Office for use in revenue projections as an exception to the confidentiality requirements in NRS 360-255. I would now like to turn the time over to Susanna Powers at the Governor's Finance Office.
Chair Neal and members of the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, good afternoon. This is Susanna Powers, economist for the Budget Division of the Governor's Finance Office, and I am here with the Department of Taxation to present AB 9, which revises provisions governing the disclosure of certain information by the Department of Taxation to the Budget Division of the Governor's Office of Finance under certain circumstances. It is important to note that the disclosure of certain confidential information to the Budget Division will only be utilized for the projections of revenues. NRS 353.227(2)B requires the Director of the Legislative Counsel Bureau and the Chief of the Budget Division of the Finance Office to jointly provide staff to the Economic Forum. The current law only allows the Fiscal Division of the Legislative Counsel Bureau to acquire confidential information from the Department of Taxation related to matters of revenue projections, but does not allow them to discuss these matters with the staff in a budget division. Given the joint nature of the work required for the Economic Forum, the current law does not allow both parties to work under the same information set. The two offices also prepare consensus revenue projections for various non-general fund revenue sources, such as those dedicated to support K-12 education. Without this revision to statute, the Budget Division will continue to be hindered in properly discharging its duties. The latter is just one example of a situation in which the two offices work together on revenue projections needed by both the executive and legislative branches of government in budget development and the approval process. But the current law does not allow the two offices to discuss matters that may be confidential in nature. AB 9 allows the staff at the Budget Division of Governor's Finance Office to fully execute the duty as described in NRS 353.227(2)B and work jointly with staff at the Fiscal Division of Legislative Counsel Bureau on revenue projections. Thank you for your time and consideration of this bill. I'm going to turn this back to Director Young now.
Thank you, Susanna. For the record, Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. And this does conclude our presentation, and we are available for questions. Thank you.
Members, any questions?
Sure.
Senator Kekeffer.
Thank you. I certainly understand the intent, and it seems to make sense. There's no reason that Ms. Powers should be at a disadvantage when projecting revenue as compared to her counterparts in other branches of government. But I'm surprised, frankly, that it's gone on this way. And as I read current statute, I mean, how is the GFO not an agent of the governor And how is revenue projection not part of the governor's general supervisory duties? I mean, it seems to me like that you should be covered under the current statute.
Thank you, Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. What we did this process is looked at that section, and we did do a workaround to allow the governor's office to designate the governor's finance office, Susanna Powers, to have this information. And we are looking at this as a temporary workaround, and we want to make sure that we are in compliance with the statute. So that's why we're bringing forth this legislation. Thank you.
Follow up, or are you good? Any additional questions? I have one. It kind of follows what Senator Kekeffer was saying. I don't understand, what is the history around why the governor's office was prevented from accessing this information? I don't recall this coming up under Sandoval in the 10, 11 years that I've been here. So I guess I'm trying to find out, was there a reason, like separation of powers? What was it that pretty much guarded the governor's office from this information?
Thank you, Senator Neal, for the question. Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. And I think that's a really good question you have, and I'm going to take an attempt to answer that. And if Chief Deputy Shelley Hughes could provide some additional background that I might not be providing in my testimony. But what I would like to share is I believe that the economist at the governor's finance office is more of a recent addition to that position. And the economist at the Department of Taxation, I believe, is a recent position in the last 5 or so years. And with this new collaboration that's happening between the economist, we wanted to make sure that we could share that information. And if Deputy Hughes could share any other information that she might have available. Thank you.
Shelley Hughes for the record. I don't really have any of the legislative history available on this, but I can note that disclosure to LCB's fiscal division is also not included in 360-255. And so they're able to get the information through a separate statute. And it's likely this wasn't taken into account when the drafting of 360-255 was done. And we look at 360-255 subsection 2E, where it does give disclosure to the governor and his agents and the supervisory power. We felt that that was open to interpretation, and for certainty, we thought that this language should explicitly state that the information is disclosable to the budget office for revenue projections.
Okay, thank you for that. I believe Mr. Gendon has some legislative history. He's been around for a really long time. I mean that in the nicest way.
I appreciate that sentiment. So, for the record, Russell Gendon, Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division. And as I go through my comments here, I need to do my disclosure that as nonpartisan Legislative Council Bureau staff, I'm neither support or promote or support or oppose proposed legislation. But I think I can probably offer some context for the members of the committee, especially with regards to Chair Neal's question and Senator Kekeffer's question. You're talking to the first economist of the budget office when they created that position in 1994, and I took it. And then I was smart enough to come over to the Bureau in 1999. So I would offer for Senator Kekeffer's sort of question and Senator Neal simultaneously, that it is sort of an evolutionary thing sometimes. And because I can tell you when I was at the economist at the budget office, I really didn't think about asking for confidential taxpayer data. Would it have been great to have? But just was thinking about the confidentiality things that were in place, and it never came. So then when I came to the Legislative Counsel Bureau, we have the provision that Ms. Hughes cited, 218F.620. That provision was only put in place for your legislative staff in 1995, ironically about the same time as I came to the state to work for the budget office. So what I've seen in myself being involved in this revenue forecasting stuff since 94 is the current economist, Susanna Powers, that's at the budget office, I think is actively engaging in this stuff at the same level that LCB staff is. So we're making use of 218F.620 to get this data to be able to try and learn more about what's going on, especially things like recessions and pandemics really sometimes help to go in and look at the by taxpayer data to see what's driving it, especially to make assumptions about how the recovery may look for certain taxes. So then we've been in our, as fiscal staff and budget and taxation, we have just been interacting much more to make sure we all have the same information set. So we're not colluding or interacting on the actual forecast that we're presenting to the forum or the technical advisory committee to the forum. But as forecasters, we think it's prudent that we're at least all having the same perspective or information set under which to produce those forecasts. So out of that came fiscal asking for data and having that. And then we could talk to Haley Owens at taxation, but then we couldn't really interact with Susanna Powers because she didn't have the data. And then as it was stated, they did the workaround based on the law to have the governor say, hey, give the data to the governor's finance office. So I think this statutory provision just makes it clear that, hey, GFO doesn't have to try and go through the governor and have the governor go. They can just make their request the same way fiscal analysis division staff can. And so that's really, I think it's an evolutionary thing of the GFO and fiscal making use of this because of economic events that have happened. Because I can tell you, probably your fiscal staff didn't make too much use of this except for very specific legislative requests and till probably the Great Recession. It has realized that we needed to start getting our hands on this data. And then since we learned the value of that, we use it more during the pandemic, and we will probably continue to use it. And thus, it does make sense to me that then my counterpart in the budget office, when we do need to interact and engage, would have the same ability to have the information set that your staff does, so we can continue to interact on a common information set for preparing forecasts. So hopefully that maybe provides a little context on the history of the issue of being able to get this data and use it, and why possibly it's an important thing for forecasters.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gendon. All right. So I'm assuming, are there any additional questions by the members? If not, I'm going to go to support.
Just one final question, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Senator Kika.
Yeah, the Director Young, I noticed it's your bill and not the GFO's bill, right? So is it fair to interpret this as you guys wanting cover for releasing the information and getting clarity that this is okay, rather than the GFO being worried that she's not getting a fair shake?
Thank you, Senator Kiekefer, for the question. Melanie Young, Executive Director. That is a correct statement. We want to make sure that we're following the statutes, and having that clarity is important. And partnering with the Governor's Finance Office and being able to provide the details on the revenues that the state collects.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I don't see any additional questions, so we will go ahead and open up for support of AB 9. BPS, is anyone called? Have they called in?
Chair, there are no callers on the line at this time. Would you like to take a pause to wait to see if anyone will call in?
We can take a 30-second pause.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Let's see if anyone has dialed in for opposition to AB 9.
Thank you, Chair. At this time, there are no callers on the line for opposition to AB 9.
Okay. Anyone in neutral?
No, Chair, there are no callers on the line in neutral testimony at this time.
Okay. All right. So, Department of Taxation, do you have any closing remarks on AB 9?
Yes, thank you, Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation, and we appreciate your time in hearing AB 9 today, and thank you for your support.
All right. So we will go ahead and close the hearing on AB 9 and open up for public comment.
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
All right. So we will go ahead and adjourn Senate Revenue. Everyone have a good afternoon.